infantry division. It's an ugly planet, a bug planet, a planet hostile to
Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. This is Wait, You Haven't Seen? It's a show where we talk about movies, and specifically we talk about a movie at least one of us has never seen before. I'm your host, Travis, aka TV's Travis. This is episode number 338, and our film this week from 1997 is Starship Troopers. And here to talk with me about it, because he had seen it and wanted me to, from The More You Nerd, it's Drew. Drew, how you doing?
Hey, Travis, good to see you again.
It's great to see you.
It has only been like a couple of weeks since we saw each other in person.
I
which
know.
is wild.
It is wild. All right, so Starship Troopers, 1997, directed by Paul Verhoeven.
Yes.
What's your history with this one?
So Starship Troopers came out when I was 13 years old.
Mhm.
Or about to turn 13. I didn't actually look at the release window, but it seems like a big summer movie in 1997. So when you have a marketing push of big sci-fi craziness and being known for one scene in particular,
Yes.
this was a movie that I needed to see. Now, obviously, I don't think I got to see it in the theaters because it was an R-rated film
Mhm.
In 1997, but definitely watched it on VHS over and over again. And once DVD became a thing, we were renting that movie a lot too.
Mhm, I'm sure. So I was a couple years older than that. I would have been around 16 when this came out. 1997, and initially it was a summer release, and then they pushed it back, and it ended up being like a November release, like late October, early November, something like that. But I had heard early reviews that it wasn't very good, and I didn't go and see it in the theater for whatever reason. I'm sure there were other movies in 97 that I wanted to go see. Let this one fall by, and then for the longest time, all I heard was, "Oh, that movie's terrible." And so I just never watched it. It became, in my head, a movie that I wasn't going to like, and so I wasn't going to watch it. So as a young man, I didn't ever watch it. And then years later, it was one of those where I started to hear people say, like, it's really not that bad. Oh, it's not what you think it is, blah, blah, blah. But then I just never got around to it. I kind of just kicked the can.
That's the thing about this movie, is that on one hand, no, it's not very good. It's okay. But it's the social commentary and the political satire of it that we're going to talk about this, I'm sure, in great lengths.
Yeah.
That people completely missed when it was actually in theaters and early days. Reviewers missed it. That it was based on I wouldn't say well-known book, which I have not read, so I can't speak too much of it there either. But that, so you had on one hand, you had the reviewers not really getting the social commentary. On the other hand, you had it not being a one-for-one copy of the book that people had read.
Yeah.
That you had kind of had it coming from both sides, this sort of, meeting of the minds to hate this movie. And really, it's only been in the last, I feel like 6 or 7 years that I've heard the tide kind of turning on this movie.
So it definitely, mostly in the most recent few years, I think probably for me, I started hearing maybe 10 or 12 years ago, like, Starship Troopers is better than you'd think. And part of that was, for me, was when I was, because I went to college initially out of high school, early 2000s, dropped out for a number of reasons, went back several years later. And in that second stint of college, I took a sci-fi fantasy writing class as kind of an elective. And in that class, one of the authors that we talked about was Robert Heinlein. And this book came up and the movie adaptation came up. And that was the first time I heard about. I had heard that it was based on a novel, but I didn't know much about it. And this was the first time I had heard like, oh no, the movie takes a very different direction in its presentation of the material. And we didn't read the book, but we did read, I think, a different Heinlein short, and I really enjoyed that. And it's been a book I've kind of wanted to read just to sort of check it out. But I also, at some point, was like, well, I should watch the movie too and kind of do a compare and contrast. And then just never got around to watching the movie. It would go out of sight, out of mind. I wouldn't think about it. It would pop up in some discussion, and I'd be like, I need to watch that movie, and then forget about it again. So this podcast is giving me a nice excuse to watch it. And when I brought it up to you, you're like, I've watched that movie dozens of times. And so I said, perfect. That is the great excuse to be able to watch this. And the thing is, I like Paul Verhoeven. I love RoboCop. RoboCop is an amazing movie. I just posted a thing earlier this week about it. Like, it was sarcastically being like, if they made RoboCop today, it'd be full of all sorts of woke stuff, like the police are bad and blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah. Like, yes, it would be, because it was then. But
exactly. It's like, oh, corporations hate us?
Corporations are evil. What? Verhoeven is great because, and in that he is so good with the satire in his movies. The problem with his satire, because there's different ways to do satirical content. There is satire like Hot Fuzz, for instance, is satire. And it's one of my favorites because it comes from this place of love of the material that it's taking, the piss out of. And it's just turning an eye onto, yes, this stuff is ridiculous, but we love it and we're going to celebrate the ridiculous parts of it. And then there's satire like what Verhoeven does, which is, this is dumb, and I'm going to point out how it's dumb by making it look like I'm not doing that. It's a weird, subtle satire, and it's almost too subtle for its own good in ways.
In some ways, like the stuff that's very obviously satirical, like the "Would you like to know more?"
Right.
All of those things really land. But there's a level to it, and this is where I recognize it as satire. But when I actually got when I'm also on a show called Cosmic Replay, like it's a game called Starfinder. It's like Space D&D.
Yep.
And we were doing a campaign that was very heavily inspired by Starship Troopers.
Okay.
And we were going to be a military unit on the ground fighting these bug monsters.
Sure.
And as we were talking about it, the Starship Troopers kept coming up. And my wife is on that show, and she had never seen it. So a few years ago, we sat down, and I was telling her about how it was a satire, and et cetera, et cetera. And watching that movie with her, she had taken satire to mean funny as part of it. Right. And this movie is really not funny in a lot of ways. There are some extremely, extremely brutal moments in this movie that, that watching it again for this, and sort of, watching it with a note to make, or with an eye to make notes of stuff I want to make sure I bring up. There are some absolutely awful things in here that I can't wait to discuss.
And it's the thing where Verhoeven is Dutch, I believe. And if I remember correctly, he grew up in Nazi-occupied Netherlands, I think.
Yes, I believe you're correct in that, because he mentions that in the creation of Starship Troopers.
Yeah, and so like that's a big thing for him, is sort of pointing out the all of that. And when he is designing this movie, this is very much an anti-fascist story being told through the lens of like, this is a fascist society and it's a militaristic society. And he's pointing out the ridiculousness of that and the bad parts of that, but it's packaged in a way to look like it's good, right? That's and that's on purpose.
Yeah, but he did, unfortunately, too good of a job with that, because it's so often in the 90s when you're watching this movie, and I was 13 watching this movie.
Yeah,
I wasn't rushing out to join the mobile infantry or anything like that, but you really love seeing the the big tough guys shooting the alien bugs and making big explosions and gore and all sorts of crazy stuff happening, and you maybe don't miss the whole point in the civics class that he's in the beginning of the movie, talking about the failure of democracy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, you're not paying attention to that because that's the first watch. That's not your focus. Your focus is Johnny Rico and what he's doing and what's going on there. And the dialogue gets kind of pushed to the background. It's very similar.
A blonde, white, pretty boy with the name Rico, growing up in Buenos Aires, Argentina, with a best friend named Carl.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I want to get to the casting, but one of the things that this movie reminds me of is the way that it was perceived at the time is very similar to what happened with Fight Club in 1999, which is Fight Club is also a satire, but a very subtle one. And a lot of people took the wrong lessons from Fight Club and saw the wrong things to latch onto because Brad Pitt looks so cool. And you don't, like, Tyler Durden is not a hero in that story. He's not a good guy in that story. He's not supposed to be. But because it's Brad Pitt and he's just so damn cool looking, it's tough, right? And that same thing kind of happened here.
The character Rorschach in the Watchmen comics and movies was created as a parody of this super right-wing quasi-libertarian conspiracy theorist character that existed before. But he was so cool in the book that people miss that message completely.
Yeah. I don't want to harp too much on media literacy, but like being able to pick that kind of stuff out sometimes is really important, and it gets missed often.
And it hasn't gotten any better.
No.
And that's why I think watching this movie today for the first time in 2025, that is something that I'm interested to see what you picked up on with that versus watching it as an adult for the first time versus me watching it for the first time at 13 years old. And I'm in my 40s now and seeing it evolve. The movie itself hasn't changed, but everything else about it has evolved so much as far as how this movie is perceived.
So I can say quite emphatically that had I seen this in 1997, 1998, that a lot of it would have shot right over my head. I wouldn't have recognized much of the stuff in there. Like I wouldn't have caught a lot of Michael Ironside's dialogue early on, and all of that kind of stuff. I would have noticed the ridiculousness of like the propaganda videos.
Yeah,
but I also in this watch really picked up on some stuff that I probably wouldn't have even at that time. But before we dive too much into it, I got to talk about the cast of this movie because I was getting like whiplash back and forth of some of the cameos of actors that popped up in this. And we start with like our main characters are all just utterly ridiculously good looking people. And I know that was done on purpose, right? To really like Casper Van Dien, this is what he is mostly known for. And I did read some things where he's even talked about like to this day, it's still this movie that he's recognized for.
Well, he came back for one of the direct-to-video sequels.
Oh, did he?
Well,
oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it was the third one or the fourth one. I can't remember specifically which one, but it's also one of those things where like they've made a couple of direct-to-video sequels. I haven't watched any of them, but I have a sneaking suspicion that they are not the biting social commentary that the first movie.
It's hard to say, yeah. But he is like. He has the most square jaw I have ever seen on a person. It is pretty astounding. And he's very good in this for the material that he's given. I don't want to say it's certainly not an Oscar-worthy performance, but this isn't that kind of movie either. Like,
right.
You're not getting that out of him here. But that's fine. That's not what, this is on the level of a RoboCop in terms of like performances. But he's very good in that. You have Denise Richards as Carmen. By the way, I got to play this really quick. I have a ton of clips. I had to stop myself at one point in like the first, because I'm 10 minutes into this movie and I've clipped 14 things already. What am I doing?
If you looked at my notes section of my notes app, it's like, oh wow, I've got a lot of stuff from the first scene.
There's so much in there. But Denise Richards plays a character named Carmen, and this is her last name. And I want to play this because I've never heard this name pronounced this way before.
Pilot Trainee Ibanez reporting for duty, ma'am.
Ibanez. I've never heard it pronounced that way. But I think that's because I watch, there's several Major League Baseball players who have the last name of Ibanez, and that is how it's spelled. And so that's what I've always heard. So when I heard Ibanez, it threw me for a second.
I did not ever clock her saying her own name in this movie, but other people do call her Ibanez later in the movie.
Okay. So maybe it was just her saying it that way that one time, but I noticed that and I'm like, that doesn't hit my ear right.
Yeah, because it's wrong.
Denise Richards is fine. I have no problems with her.
She is doing her very best, and in some scenes it actually works. In other scenes, it is not the strongest.
I think also for me, my biggest hang up in the movie is that the character of Carmen I don't like. And I don't like Carmen because most of these characters delude themselves, and she is deluding Rico as well, because she knows what she wants, but doesn't really communicate very well to him that, like, I don't know. It always felt like there's this weird love triangle between Johnny Rico and Carmen and Dizzy. And then you throw in the character of what the hell is his name? Xander. And it was a weird love triangle with her. Like, she's supposed to be Johnny's girlfriend at the beginning of the movie, but immediately flirting with this other guy.
So this is where I actually went to the links for this, and I watched all the deleted scenes from this movie.
Okay.
Most of them were deleted for a very good reason and are not very good.
Okay.
But one of the earliest scenes that was deleted is Johnny and Carmen making out at a park somewhere, and getting a little more handsy than I think I anticipated. But basically, it sort of sets up this idea of why the big question that he has is, why don't you kiss me at school? And if you remember, when they walk out of the classroom, there's two people making out right outside the classroom door right there. And it's like, oh, well, they're going to just start kissing now too, aren't they? No, well, kind of, but not the same way. Apparently, Carmen, at least in the script, this was all of the cutting room floor, was supposed to, her dad was a citizen. And her dad disapproved of Johnny because Johnny's parents weren't citizens.
Okay. See,
they're rich, so they didn't need to be citizens to be able to do stuff. So as a result, she was very closed off about their relationship because she didn't like the way that it looked to her dad and potentially to other people.
Okay. Well, that definitely does not come across in the final film, and so that made me kind of just dislike her character, because, like, I get the, oh, not here, but maybe later, but then just the way she was, like, all about somebody else, and then but still, like, with him, and, you know, of course Johnny's an idiot and is joining up because of her. Like, that's not a good reason to do that.
Well, yeah, I don't think you're supposed to like Carmen. I think if you look at everything that Carmen does, she has this weird Goonie smile on her face on just about every scene in the movie where she's doing something that she's not supposed to do. She is, you know, goes fast and loose in the pilot seat. She's a hot shot pilot, whatever. She's always doing stuff that she's not technically supposed to because,
grass? Yeah.
Because she's like, oh, hey, keep it to station minimum speed. Why? You know, all of this stuff. She leads Johnny on. She definitely She's definitely hooking up with the other dude.
Oh, she's totally with Xander, and
to the point where there are a number of deleted scenes that are the two of them getting together. The day that she finds out Johnny died.
Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy!
It's wild.
Yeah,
but they're also, I think, interestingly setting up this difference in the different levels of the military, because you've got the mobile infantry that Johnny is signed up for, which again, I think this is also one of the more subtle things that they do in this movie. You sign up, you take your pledge, you do all of this stuff to join the military before you even find out what division you're going to be assigned to.
Yep.
That hit me this time. It's like, that's, you don't like, oh, if you they have to have people join the mobile infantry or else the whole thing falls apart, but not everybody's going to make it into fleet. And you've got Johnny and his crew, and they're all sharing these big barracks, and they're showering together because, that's just what it is. And then Carmen's got her own room to herself. She's got her little makeup mirror set up in the background of the video calls. She's wearing this nice uniform and not like all this combat gear.
Yeah, it was interesting. That was, I think, the other thing with her that I didn't like was the cavalier way she flew stuff felt... like the whole scene where she's like, "Oh, your career's in my hands," to Xander when she's backing the ship out. Like, that just made me not like her. But you're probably right; she wasn't meant to be liked.
I mean, the very first scene we see her in, after we've been hanging out with Johnny Rico, and the platoon, is her and one of her other pilot candidates racing through the ship. Like, I called it Teen Girl Squad pilots because they're just like, with their bags and everything else. And it's just, it's very silly, but it's just the different sides of the coin of what they have signed up for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing I do know, the book, I was reading about kind of differences between the movie and the book. And one of the things was in the book, military service is almost discouraged by a lot of people. Like, they try to discourage people from just signing up for no reason to make sure they're getting people that want to be in the military. Yeah. They kind of touch on that because Johnny comes from money, right? And his parents are like, you're not doing this. And it's that
you're going to go to
right?
Harvard.
Yeah. And that's the end of it. And it's that teacher, right? And in the book, the teacher and Ratchek are two different characters, and they kind of just made them one. But I did like where he's like, yeah, it's that teacher, and he goes, no, he mostly discourages us from joining. Like, that's about as close as you get to that. But you're right; it is weird that they take the pledge and all of that before even learning where they're assigned and what they're going to be doing. For whatever reason. And okay.
But it does give that great moment of, Johnny handing over his papers and, oh, mobile infantry, that may be the man I am today, as he's reaching out with his like cybernetic robot hand, and he wheels out and, oh, he's got no legs either.
So that was the first of my, holy crap, I love that guy, because I knew Michael Ironside was in this movie, so that one wasn't a surprise to me. Michael Ironside is Jean Ratchek. Love him. I absolutely adore Michael Ironside. He's
perfect. He's perfect casting for this.
Perfect casting for this. He always goes for it. Whatever he is in, he just goes for it. But the recruiting sergeant that shakes his hand, I recognized him right away. Robert David Hall, who was the coroner in CSI, the original CSI series for most of its run. And I love him in that show as that coroner. And I'm watching him in this, and when he pushes his chair back, and it's like, oh, because he doesn't actually have legs. And so he just didn't have his prosthetic on. But I'm like, but this is the second adult that we've met through Johnny, right? Because it's Ratchek who is missing an arm, and then this guy who's missing an arm and both his legs. They're the ones that have been in the military so far that we've met, and they have these grievous wounds. And the only other adults we've met are Johnny's parents, who are not, and they're fine, and they're rich.
There's also the science teacher when they're dissecting dissecting the bug.
Another one, Rue McClanahan.
I am shocked right now. That was Rue McClanahan?
That was Rue McClanahan. And
I'm looking at it. I didn't look at it before just a second ago. And I'm looking at it and I still don't believe it.
I heard the voice and I may have made like a very high-pitched squeal while I was watching this movie, hearing Rue McClanahan's voice, because I absolutely adore her. And I wish that she had been in the movie more. But she's the other adult and she's blinded. And you can tell has, injuries to her face that caused her to be blind. And that scene, by the way, that whole dissection scene with the bugs, the big beetles, was
it's awful.
It's terrible, but it's amazing at the same time, because that bug that they are taking apart is an amazing just prop. Special effects prop.
It's fantastic practical effects, but it's also one of those things where, they're ripping this bug apart. Nobody's wearing gloves.
Nope.
Nobody's wearing face masks or goggles or any kind of protective anything.
Glasses. They have safety glasses on. That's about it. But Johnny's just like elbow deep in this thing, pulling guts out, and they're just covered in goop and gook and bleh.
And I respect a movie for allowing Denise Richards, supermodel level Denise Richards, to actually vomit on screen.
Yeah. I saw that coming and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to. And at that point in the scene, it had already been gross enough that it wasn't enough to push me over the edge. But like, I know some people that have a real problem with that. So that's kind of a trigger warning if you do watch this movie and you maybe haven't seen it in a while.
I was very, because I remember her throwing up, but I don't remember seeing her do it. I thought it was one of those cutaway things where you just kind of maybe hear,
which is usually what you get.
Noise.
But yeah, it's that scene is crazy, and I like that because it comes right after. Because we've met Johnny, we've met Carmen. Neil Patrick Harris is their other friend Carl, who apparently is psychic, and we just kind of know a little bit about that. And then another friend of theirs, who I mentioned but is part of the love triangle, is Dizzy Flores, played by Dina Meyer. Now, Denise Richards, supermodel, amazing looking, but Dina Meyer in the 90s, coming off of Johnny Mnemonic and this movie, and I had seen her in Dragonheart, and I loved that movie, and she's in that.
I remember her being in Star Trek Nemesis, the final of the Next Generation movies, not that far in the future. I'm wearing a Star Trek shirt right now, for the record, for those not watching at home but just listening, because this is the Federation I would rather exist instead of the Federation that exists within the context of this movie.
Yes, for sure. And those are kind of our main kids. And they're all supposed to be high school kids, but they're all in their like mid to late 20s. Very clearly mid to late 20s too. I think Casper Van Dien and Dina Meyer are like 29 when they're making this.
No way. Really?
They were born in like 1968. Neil Patrick Harris is the youngest of them, and he was born in 1973, I think. So they're all in their like middle to late 20s. But
it's important to note, by the way, for Neil Patrick Harris, because this is a guy that was Doogie Howser. Mm-hmm. Like, that is what he had been known for. And now he has, in recent years, become known for a lot of other stuff, and How I Met Your Mother and all sorts of stuff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he was in kind of a career downturn at this point.
Yeah.
Playing this character. And Harold and Kumar, somebody says in the chat.
Yep.
That was when, and he was playing, I actually weirdly saw a video about him talking about that movie. Someone was at a party with him and talked to him as, "Hey, I'm in this movie you're in." Because apparently they wrote crazy Neil Patrick Harris in that movie, but he wasn't cast in the movie.
Oh, wow.
So he ended up calling his agent and figuring it out. And then, the rest is history, I guess. But
Jake Busey also, I knew Jake Busey around this time, and I like him. This is an early one for him, but he's
Had
great.
he done Contact already at this point?
I think this was the same year as Contact, so right around there. But the thing I liked about Ace was a trope subversion for me, because he's introduced, and I thought you immediately think he's going to be some kind of a rival with Johnny, and then nope, he's just kind of the goofy friend.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I guess we could be buddies, and as it turns out, yeah, they can.
Yeah. and Jake Busey's awesome. He's really good at these kind of roles, especially when he was younger. Plus, he's freaking tall. Like, him and Clancy Brown just tower over everybody in this movie.
Yeah,
and Clancy Brown, Sergeant Zim, I will never be upset to see Clancy Brown in something. He is always great. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he is playing Captain Hadley in Shawshank Redemption or the Kurgan, two of the best villains in film history, or he's playing Sergeant Zim here or Mr. Krabs. I don't care what it is. You put Clancy Brown in something, you make me happy.
Clancy Brown is the man of one face, but 1,000 characters.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so the funny thing is, you've got Michael Ironside and Clancy Brown in this. Number one, both Highlander villains. Not saying that Highlander has the best actors as villains, but they're both Highlander villains. But also two of the more intimidating personas in film. Like, when you need somebody that needs to intimidate other people as a character, you can't go much worse than those two. Yeah. I mean, good Lord. Which I have some clips I want to play to illustrate that a little bit later. But yeah, this whole cast is great, top to bottom. Dean Norris pops up later on, who, you know, by the time I'm watching this now at this age, like, I'd seen him in Breaking Bad and a bunch of other stuff, and he's the commanding officer.
Oh, that's who that was. I was like, that guy looks so familiar, but I guess it's, 20 years before I saw him in something else.
And the other one that popped up that was surprised me, because I did not see it coming, and he's only on screen for about 30 seconds, and it's in one of the propaganda videos, and it's Timothy Amundsen as the psychic in the one thing where he has the third eye open in his forehead, and he's like, do you think you're a psychic? You might be. Detective Carlton Lassiter on Psych, and I love him so much. And it just made me giggle. I'm like, oh, and then he's like Rue McClanahan, no longer in the movie. And it bummed me out. I want more of that, but that's just because I know who these, I know these people.
I can't believe that was Rue McClanahan. This is blowing my mind right now.
As soon as I didn't recognize her right away because it's a wide shot, but as soon as she started talking, I'm like, wait a minute, that's Blanche Devereaux.
I had something that I needed to look up and didn't, of course, immediately forgot about it when I closed the app. Is there's a scene later where two experts are arguing on one of these television stations, and I thought, oh wait, is that the science teacher from the beginning of the movie? Clearly not, because that's not Rue McClanahan.
No, that was actually that actor. I know her from The Frighteners, which is right around the same time she played an elderly, like somebody's grandmother or aunt or whatever in The Frighteners, kind of a smaller role, but I recognized her from that. But a lot of really great character actors popping up here and there in this movie. So love the cast. Also Eric Brescotter as Breckenridge, the one who gets shot and killed in the training.
Oh yeah, golly! I think we're going to spend some time talking about the training aspect of it.
So the whole, like, if I had a nitpick for this movie, I liked this movie. I'm going to say that right out. I really, really liked this movie. I'm kind of kicking myself for having not watched it, but at the same time, I appreciate and understand a lot more about it now than I would have as a kid. It would have been as a teenager or in my early 20s watching this, I probably would have enjoyed it, but I wouldn't have gotten it to the same level that I do now. But if I had a nitpick, the movie's about 2 hours and 9 minutes with the credits. It needs to do one of two things. They either needed to trim a little bit down and get it maybe just under 2 hours, or this needed to be made today as like the 8-episode elongated movie where we can really flesh out a lot of these storylines. Because there's parts of it that just don't go anywhere that I want to have something more through.
there's through lines that are definitely the thing, and the ending to the movie itself kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, and just sort of happens.
It ends very abruptly,
mm-hmm.
Which I think is fine when we're focusing on our sort of main trio, if you want to call Carl part of the main trio, considering he's barely in the movie itself.
Yeah.
But
mm-hmm.
but yeah, that's where I think they just, and this is again another thing about Verhoeven that I feel like if he had made this movie in a different context, our main crew may not be so heroic with everything. They may not be the ones that are saving the day and changing everything. And I guess technically they weren't when it comes to the final moments of the movie.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing that I noticed is there's a big through line throughout this film of propaganda, right? We start the movie off with these propaganda pieces of, I'm doing my part. And it, first of all, for the opening shot of the movie to be all these soldiers lined up and you get I'm doing my part, and then a kid, like a 10-year-old kid, and I'm doing my part too, and they all kind of laugh. Holy dark. Like, wow.
Yeah.
That's that set me up for what I was getting out of this movie, like right away. It created the expectation.
Well, those propaganda things are so well done too,
they're so good.
Especially when you think about it in the context of what actually happens in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, this is something that first 20 times watching, I wasn't paying attention to it, right? So you've got the idea that, and this is, I think, the second or third one, where we've been introduced to the bugs because we've seen the Klendathu flash forward.
Yep.
And we've seen a bunch of people get brutally murdered by these things. They're talking about these monsters, and they push a cow into this room with one of these bugs.
Mm-hmm.
And as the bug attacks the cow, a gigantic censored bar takes place over the cow. It's a very funny moment when you're watching this movie. It's very silly. And the very next thing they talk about is a murderer that's been captured and that his execution will be airing live on all stations.
Yes.
On all channels.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're showing this colony that was this Mormon colony that went out, and you're just seeing this gore and all of these dead human bodies with blood everywhere and body parts missing and heads splayed out and all of this stuff.
Yeah. Yep. The news.
But they censored the cow.
Yes. I noticed that, and I definitely would not have clocked that in my younger days as like being what it is, which is we can show in this world, they can show all this horrific gore and terrible mutilation of people. But when it comes to showing an animal, the SPCA or whatever, ASPCA is going to step in and be like, you can't show that on TV.
I don't think that's an ASPCA thing. I think it's that it's all about the narrative that they're trying to set up.
That could be, that could be
because,
as well.
Because I also say one of the other first things that we see is how the bugs keep sending meteors, but our planetary defenses are better than ever. And we see this meteor getting blown out of space that's headed towards the Earth. And yet when the one meteor that happens to come by that we see in the movie, and the one ship that's there doesn't even bother trying to destroy it. They just let it go, and they can't communicate that it's coming. And that just so happens to be the meteor that crushes Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
Which means, one, either the planetary defenses are not as good as they are being promoted as, and there's no evidence for this in the movie other than I could see one of these quote unquote sky marshals doing this, just letting that one through as a prelude to go to war.
Yeah. Yep. There definitely could be the undercurrent of that. I thought about that after watching it. Like, I wonder if that was set up that way or not, because everything is so, like, the message is so tailored throughout. And it's always this, would you like to know more? And are you doing your part? And just, the squad, like showing a bunch of kids squashing cockroaches because they're bugs, and we start them young to fight bugs and hate the bugs, and we they're not human, but we dehumanize the bugs and make them into this faceless just thing that we have to destroy. Like the whole idea of the planet of Klandathu must be destroyed for us to prosper.
Well, and even in the science class, when they're taking that bug apart, they're literally ripping a bug apart with their bare hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
It all fits that narrative.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's so commonplace to do it that way that they don't even think about it. Like Rico doesn't hesitate 1 second. He's just like, better get your goggles on. And he starts cutting the bug open and then just pops it open bare hands and goes in. And it's the indoctrination and the change in Rico, because he joins because Carmen wants to be a pilot. She's going to join, so that's his reasoning for joining. But by the end of the movie, his brainwashing is complete, and he is now a full-on.
That is the saddest thing about this movie, is watching Rico go from this outsider as this rich kid who was never meant to sign up for service, being the one parroting all this stuff that he's heard.
And that's a big part of it, right? Is it's not just that he becomes the soldier, but everything that was Johnny Rico becomes basically Raschek by the end. Yeah. He's using literally the same words throughout. Like it's kind of crazy to watch.
And that we've seen moments like that in war movies before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always been sort of seen as this like heroic thing, this honorable thing, that this pupil has become the master kind of story as he's taking up for his fallen lieutenant, etc. And while that's kind of still there, because these people are still human beings and they do care about each other greatly, as far as I can tell,
mm-hmm.
there's this undercurrent of the fact that it's all part of this dystopian military government regime that just kind of it really hurts. And it's the first time that I've really thought about it in that context, even knowing that that's what the point of this whole movie is.
Yeah. And you got like the soap opera part of it, right? With like Rico's all about Carmen, and Carmen isn't really that interested, but kind of leading him on. Meanwhile, you've got Dizzy, who apparently Dizzy Flores in the book is kind of a throwaway character, a guy that dies early on and isn't really a character. But Dizzy is just all about Johnny, right? And so there's your love triangle, and then you throw Xander into that mix. And that's all going on. But it literally takes Raschek to tell Johnny, hey, you've got something going here. Don't mess that up, for him to see Dizzy as anything more than a friend, because he didn't want to. Even with like Carl telling him that. Carl at the beginning of the movie is like, you gonna do something with Carmen, or you gonna like? I think it was pop the question, maybe, is what Carl was alluding to, but or maybe it was just joining up for Carmen, and Carl even telling him like, yeah, well, Dizzy. That's where we get the line about him being psychic, because he basically says Dizzy's got a thing for you. And he's like, what, did you read her mind? I don't need to.
And don't need to. Her and Carmen, basically hating each other the entire movie.
Yeah.
It's very funny until, spoiler warning, I guess. I don't know. I'm used to saying spoiler warnings before stuff, but if you're tuning into the show, hopefully you've watched the movie.
I hope so.
But yeah, when Dizzy is dying in the back of the ship that Carmen is piloting,
mm-hmm.
and Xander says, hey, your friend Rico's back there. And she looks, and then she turns back around because, Dizzy's back there too, dying.
How dare she? Yeah, once Johnny signs up, and they leave, right? Because that's the point where the three musketeers, Johnny, Carmen, and Carl, are kind of palling around. Dizzy is sort of tagging along, but she doesn't initially join.
Yeah, and we should probably also say Dizzy and Johnny are on the same future sport space football
team. I think it's called like jump ball or something. So that is, by the way, for me, I don't know about you, but if I were going to trim scenes down to tighten up the runtime on this a little bit, the jump ball stuff I would have cut. Because I don't think
it's incredibly stupid.
It doesn't give us any. It gives us one thing, which is that Dizzy is leadership material, and she, because she's the quarterback and she can run things. But we don't need this scene for that. We can work that in somewhere else, and it just is a scene that doesn't need to be there. But
it is. I think it does set up that. Hey, remember, these are teenagers making these decisions. Making these life-changing, world-changing decisions. Like, they literally go to their prom, or not even a prom, just a dance.
Yeah.
And then the next day, they literally ship out for military service, and they don't even know what branch they're going to be in.
Yeah, I think part of it is because it's so hard for me to think of these characters as teenagers, because they're clearly not. Sure. That I forget that sometimes, but...
I have an easier time with it because I was a young teenager, and all the teenagers that I was ever exposed to growing up on different TV shows were in their mid to late 20s.
That's true. That's true.
It's just easy. And now I have a teenager living in my own home, and he looks like a child, and it's like,
wait a minute. I mean, come on, Forrest Gump. At one point, Tom Hanks is supposed to be playing 18-year-old Forrest Gump, and he's, I think, in his late 30s by that point. So anyway, but they ship off, and so the three of them go their separate ways, right? Carl's just gone, and the movie kind of forgets about him for a while.
Well, they say he's going into, what is it, games and strategy?
Yeah,
is the
he's
unit that
military
he's
intelligence.
Yeah.
And Carmen goes her own way, and then we follow Johnny to boot camp for the mobile infantry. And this is where the movie really starts to give you a little bit, because it gets interesting. First of all, we've talked about it, but we're going to go to it now. The scene that had 13-year-old, 14-year-old Drew tied to this movie.
Woo!
Co-ed showering.
Oh, I thought you were talking about that guy getting shot in the head.
Well, we'll get to that. No. Co-ed showering, which is a thing apparently Paul Verhoeven had in RoboCop, but nobody noticed it. I kind of want to go back and look for it now just to see.
Oh, you know what? I bet it. Well, I don't know if there's any actual showering,
or if it's just like in the locker room.
I think they show the locker room as shared because what's her name? Murphy's partner.
Oh,
is in the same locker
yeah.
room as the guys. It's been a minute since I've watched RoboCop, though.
But yeah, this is. The funny thing is, this is the most controversial scene when the movie came out, was the co-ed showers, not the brutal, horrendous violence and gore, because there is a lot of that.
We are, in fact, Americans.
Yes.
So that's the way that things go.
But it was like Paul Verhoeven even mentioned that in like an interview, like, yeah, the gore and stuff wasn't the problem, but this was the most controversial thing, which doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever, that's America.
Well, because again, watching it, in 2025, it is the least sexy scene in the movie.
It's interesting, right? Because this is a very dystopian future, and it's this fascist society. But the one thing that they have going is like, no one cares. It's just a bunch of people showering and chatting, and it's a normal thing. It's so normalized in this that it's not at all titillating for any of the characters to be co-ed showering.
Because they've probably done this if any of them are athletes, they've done this forever.
Yeah.
But this is also where we get a ton of background of all of these other people.
Yes.
That are with Johnny and his crew. And we find out that the one trooper, she wants to go into politics. And because she wants to go into politics, well, you have to be a citizen, because if you're not, you can't do that.
Yep.
And the one guy who's like, oh, I got into Harvard, but my dad was like, you're not going because we can't pay for it. But the mobile infantry will pay for it.
Yes.
And I'm going to bring this up because this is one of the wildest parts of the movie. The lady who just says, I just want to have babies, and it's easier to get a license if you're a citizen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, I'm just going to fast forward to this because this is one of, like, we talk about a lot of we're going to talk about some brutal things in this movie, I'm sure. But the most brutal thing in this movie to me is that when they're on Big K and we see Johnny's unit on Big K, when she gets killed, when she, like, something hits her leg and she gets downed, and the bugs come out to drag her into some cave to presumably slaughter and kill her, they put a baby crying sound effect in that moment.
I don't think I noticed that amongst the cacophony of everything else going on, but
it's tough to hear, but wow. I had to pause it and rewind it to double check and see that was what happened. And it's like, oh my God, that is the most brutal thing in this entire film.
Oh, but I will say the shower scene, while it could be looked at as gratuitous, it perfectly fits this world and it makes a lot of sense. And these are just people that it wouldn't matter anymore. And to the credit of the whole cast, they all got naked. Like, there's just a whole bunch of naked people, including, and this was a cool side story that I liked, Paul Verhoeven and his director of photography, he closed the set so it was just the cast and those two crew members. So he had his DP running the camera and he's directing the scene. And apparently cast members were like, I don't feel super comfortable about this. And he's like, why? What does it matter? And I think it's either Denise Richards or Dina Meyer was like, well, yeah, Paul, you're not getting naked. Why don't you get naked with us? And he goes, all right. And so him and the director of photography shot the scene naked with the whole cast.
It would have to be Dina Meyer because Denise Richards wasn't even in that scene.
Oh, that's true. Yes. So it was Dina Meyer. But he shot the scene naked with them as like, fine, I'll do that if it makes everybody more comfortable. And I think that probably then helped everyone to be comfortable in that scene. And what I notice in that is just the casual nature of everybody in it really works to give you that sense of like, this is a unit and the camaraderie of it. So, and a stigma in the chat says, it's treated like showering after gym class or after a game. That's exactly what it is. And it's really well done. And I liked that scene, but I also understand why like 14-year-old Drew would be the scene that would draw you to the movie. I get it.
Hey,
it would have me too. I heard about it.
I'm just saying, times were different in 1997.
But then we go to training. We meet Sergeant Zim, and I just love Clancy Brown so much. His introduction is great, and the first thing he does is break somebody's arm. There's that just this brutality to everything in this training. It's all training stuff that would never happen in a military, but at the same time, the kind of interesting flip or other side of that coin is they tell them straight out, you can leave anytime you want. We're not going to force you to be here. You can just walk right out with no problems. And I found that very interesting.
A little bit of shame, but once you sign that form, that's it.
I mean, a little bit of shame in that you're not good enough to be here, get out, but not like there's not going to be any societal issues. You can just go. You can just leave and then no one's going to question it. And I liked that juxtaposed with like the first thing he does is challenge somebody to try and come take him down. So of course the big farm boy does it and he just snaps his arm like a twig. And
that guy will never be a Major League Baseball player.
Yeah, well, you can't throw from catcher to the pitcher. That's all. But right after that scene, then we see him with like a thing on his arm and he's basically healed. So it's like, yes, there's the brutality of the injury, but then also their medical technology is such that they can just heal from stuff almost right away. So there's that going on.
Seemingly, but like there's some stuff that it seems like they could fix that they don't fix that is all over the place too.
That's true. That's true. But then you get like them training and they're doing the throwing knives, and I love that scene. That is a great scene with the knives because it's like Jake Busey being, it makes sense. Why do I got to learn how to? He can't do it. He's terrible at it. He's like, well, this is dumb. Why do I got to throw a knife? All I got to do is press a button, and just the whole put your hand against the wall, and he just shoves he throws the knife right through his hand. And what a line! The enemy cannot press a button if you damage his hand.
and that's Chekhov's knife too.
Yeah.
There's a.
Oh yeah. So all of that, and we get them training with like the laser tag training. Was fun to watch. The one thing I noticed is none of the training they're doing is at all effective when fighting a 10-foot tall arachnid bug creature that can just stab you with any of its many appendages and spikes. None
Not
whatsoever.
In the slightest. They are fighting humans. They are fighting human-shaped targets. They are taught to shoot and have something die immediately and move on, which when we learn more about the bugs is not at all what can happen there until the plot requires that you can kill a bunch of bugs easily, but that's a whole other conversation.
But it was this idea, again, would not have caught any of this in my younger days watching it. But the mobile infantry, its only purpose is for making the people think they're trying something. They are expendable assets being used to like ferret out the bugs. It's the upper levels of the military using the mobile infantry, because we learn that later, right? Where Carl,
we do learn that later, but I think there's something slightly more to it that we have to talk about, and this is where I'm going to bring up the lore of the Halo video game series.
All right.
So, the Master Chief,
mm-hmm.
John, whatever his name is,
John Q. Master Chief.
Yes, the Spartans, these big, beefy. Maybe there's only one left, but then they retcon a few more in that survived the big thing.
Right.
If you look at the lore of what those guys were meant to do in the Halo games, they were meant to put down rebellions on human colonies. And then the Covenant just happened to attack, and then they became effective soldiers against the Covenant. That because to me, there is an undercurrent of they know more about the bugs than they're letting on.
Mm-hmm.
There is definitely an anti-bug sentiment that they're trying to build.
For sure.
But we also... we don't really know why so many of these people have missing limbs and stuff like that, because I don't think they've always been fighting bugs.
That's a good point.
I feel we don't really know we know Radchek served, and we know Radchek was missing half of his arm, but we don't know where he lost that arm.
And we do know that there was a military coup previously that ended democracy, basically. And the military took over.
I took that to be hundreds of years ago. I don't know.
Right, but at the same time, like, regardless of how long ago it was, like, this is a militaristic society. So you're right. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, but that does make sense that this mobile infantry is just as much. That's why they're training against, human targets, and that's why they have that training stuff. The bugs just happen to be a new threat, and they're not trained how to take them out. So they're largely ineffective, right? Because
sorry, A Stigma in the chat says that they thought that maybe some of them treat injuries as a badge of honor, and I think Radchek probably does that.
Oh yeah,
because we know that robot arms exist,
mm-hmm.
and he purposefully doesn't wear it in the classroom, but he is wearing it later when he shows back up in the movie.
Now, I did also read the book. In the book, the mobile infantry have like powered armor almost,
yes.
and like makes them have like almost superhuman abilities. And they didn't do that here, probably on purpose, because number one, it would have made the movie a lot more expensive to shoot, but also I think just making the mobile infantry just kind of shock troops fits the world that they're going for.
As far as I can tell, the like casual brutality of what we see in this movie is not the case in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And people do still die, of course, but like not in as many mass casualty situations.
Yeah, and I think there's also other alien races in the book. that we don't have here. Like here, there's basically just the humans and the bugs, and the bugs are portrayed as dumb, just animals, basically. And then over time, we learn that there is an intelligence to it. In the book, the military knows all of that already.
And I think they're just already intelligent aliens.
Yeah.
They're like just like bug aliens and like people. Star Trek alien.
But we had the, we start our training with, Sergeant Zim snapping somebody's arm and choking out Dizzy when she shows up. Like she signed up and then got herself transferred into that unit somehow, which we'll just hand wave that away. That's fine.
Well, I mean, Johnny Rico came from a rich background.
Yeah, maybe
I have a sneaking suspicion so did a lot of the other folks around there.
Fair. That's right, because she was going to go play jump ball for a pro team or something, and then
she was going to play for Rio unless Tokyo lets her start.
That's right. But she shows up and immediately gets choked out by Sergeant Zim. So like it's brutal. I did notice. Did you notice this, or how many times was it before you noticed this? After that opening scene with Zim, then they're all in the chow line, right? And Ace comes over and he's like cutting the line and talking to him, and we get the whole subversion of the like bully character.
Yeah.
I didn't notice this until because I watched this movie twice. I watched it once just to soak it in, and then I watched it again to capture some audio and some other stuff like that. The background of that scene, as that's all happening, and Rico stands up to Ace and it's like, hey, go to the back of the line type of deal. Zim is in the background of that scene, watching them.
Yeah, he's just watching.
Just watching his cadets and figuring out who's going to be the leader.
And you see him kind of make note that that Johnny stood up to what Ace was doing.
That was like, just didn't clock that my first watch. Saw it the second time. I'm like, oh, well, like I love stuff like that because that is subtle things that rewards paying attention to what's going on. And it also tells you a lot about that character too, which I'm a big fan of. But then Rico's made squad leader. And things are going great. Like I love how everything's going great for Johnny, right? He's squad leader and he's got friends and all this. We had him sending the note, his video recording to Carmen. Of course, everybody razzing him for that. That was hilarious. Like, what did you think?
That's exactly what would happen with a bunch of teenagers knowing 100%. Somebody is recording in a room together.
Yep, especially to their girlfriend, right? Yeah, or boyfriend. Like that totally would be going on. But then you get mail call. He gets the Dear John letter in his mail from Carmen.
Wah, wah.
And what I loved that scene because this is again where it shows the closeness of this group, because when he starts playing that, they are once again razzing him as you would do, right? Mm-hmm. They're telling him, "Oh, you're not good enough to have a girl that looks like that," and blah blah blah. And then as soon as everybody figures out what this video is and her breaking up with him, they all shut up and they all leave him alone. They all like scatter basically. And that to me also said a lot because like, no, these people actually do care about at least a little bit about his feelings.
Yeah, for sure.
Enough to, have that kind of respect for him. But like, he's just made squad leader. Everything's going great. Now he loses his girlfriend. And then we go to the training scene. And this movie had already been brutal, but I was not prepared for this scene. Because they started off with, you will be using live ammunition. And my brain goes, that's a terrible idea. Someone's getting shot.
Yeah, well, as it turns out.
Oh, boy.
But the way that it all happens is so interesting. Because while they're using live ammunition and they are firing at these targets that disintegrate the second a bullet touches them, the targets are still shooting back the same laser tag weapons that they used before that also cause you, when you get hit by them, to
you're electrocuted.
You're
shocked
as you fall on the ground. And I forget his character's name, the big farmer boy, the big tall Breckenridge, and he's there and he jumps in front of somebody else's firing line, and she yells at him, and he's like, "I'm sorry, it's because of my helmet." And you think, oh, that's gonna be that somebody gets shot in the back jumping in front of the firing line. No, it's because Johnny is like, what's going on, Breckenridge? He's like, it's my helmet, sir. It's blah, da, 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 da. And he orders him to take his helmet off.
Well,
and
he orders him to take his helmet off. And then one of the other cadets is yelling at Breckenridge for always screwing things up.
Oh, God.
He throws back the, well, I guess I'm just big and dumb, which was a line that was said earlier by one of the characters, Kitten. What a great name, by the way, Kitten Smith.
I thought the subtitles were wrong. I thought it was AI subtitles when I saw Kitten.
But Breckenridge throws back the, I guess I'm big and dumb, and that distracted her enough that one of the targets shoots her. Now, here's the thing. If you've ever been shocked, like if you've ever grabbed a live electrical wire, I don't know if you've ever done that. Like
only
not
every
something
other Tuesday.
High voltage, but like, you get a shock. I remember a friend of mine used to do like home theater installs. And he was pulling some wire, and he caught a live wire, and it didn't have like a big charge through it, but it shocked him a little bit. And he's kind of shaken from it. And somebody's like, "Let go," and he goes, "I can't," because you tense up.
Yeah.
So when I saw, first of all, my brain's like, live fire is a bad idea in a training exercise. Always, you would never do that. But then I see that they're still shooting the laser tag thing, and I'm like, oh no, this isn't good. So she gets hit by the laser tag thing, is shocked by it, which tenses her up, and she lets off a round right through Breckenridge's head.
Oh, God. It's one of those things where, because, again, watching this at age 13 and not having seen a ton of military war movies and not knowing that they're always going to set up these characters so that a couple of them are going to die,
right?
And so that you happen to know their names. That was not a trope that I was familiar with then.
Right.
I have become way more familiar with it in the intervening years, but that death was so shocking as a result, because it is 100% accidental. Just all of that, and it's just, his life is just out in a second. And I mean, if you pause it and look at the the prop head they made for Breckenridge, it doesn't look great, but in the moment, and especially on standard definition TV back in 1997, it was a shocking thing.
But even like, unless you freeze frame on it, it's so quick and so brutal that your brain doesn't process that, that's a fake head necessarily. It's just, holy crap, and then boom, he's done. He's down.
Yeah, you see the hole open in his forehead, and you see all of the stuff splatter out of the back.
And like, having seen RoboCop, like, I know what Paul Verhoeven is capable of in his films, what level of ultra violence he goes through for. But still, damn, like, this movie is uncompromising, I think was my note at one point, in its violence, on purpose, right? It's meant to be that way for a reason. But wow, that one just, because you're set up for it and you're waiting for the accident to happen. The second I hear live fire, I'm like, there's going to be a training accident. Somebody's not making it out of this. And now you're not sure who it is. And then, he's taking his helmet off. All right, well, he's going to get it. But I didn't expect it the way that it went down. And that's the second most brutal death in this movie. I'll just say that. For me, there's one that I think was more brutal. But we'll get there.
We haven't gotten to Big K yet.
Yeah.
There's a lot of,
oh boy,
there's a lot of stuff on Big K.
But yeah, just the whole training. So now, in our story of Johnny Rico, who's our protagonist, he is on the hook for this, right? Immediately loses his command of the squad, and he's going to get sent out. And that's where we meet Dean Norris. And it's this whole thing of like, it's a training exercise. He's not authorized to fix a helmet, all this kind of stuff, like his negligence. But you also,
it's negligence, but it's also just like an 18-year-old kid with a position of authority that he's not ready for.
Right, exactly.
And that's the thing that both does and doesn't land for me with this, because it's so interesting to hear the commander of the base be like, are you authorized in the maintenance of the M47 helmet or whatever he says? And it's like, no, sir. It's like, it's all this stuff that it's like, oh, all of this is because Rico made a silly, bad mistake. Because in the moment, he just hadn't even thought that him taking his helmet off in a live fire exercise was a bad move.
Right,
Now,
because to this point, they hadn't dealt with live fire at all. And also,
I would argue that dude also gets shot in the face, so the helmet would not have made that much of a difference.
Yeah, that is also true. But Johnny Rico, he goes through. So he goes from a civilian. He's not a citizen. He's a civilian. Signs up, is a cadet. Goes from cadet by the end of the training. He does make it to private, right? Because he's basically going to be kicked out for this mistake. And the other brutal part of the scene.
That's the thing about this. He's not going to be kicked out.
Well, they're contemplating it, but they decide not to because they lost Breckenridge, and the other cadet that shot him quit. Rightfully.
Who was the one that was going to go into politics.
Yeah, and understandably so. That would shake me up too. Yeah. That is a rough scene that is just shown real quick and then forgotten about. But her just appearing in the window, giving Johnny that look, and then walking away. I was like,
walking down Washout Lane. It's weirdly sad.
It really is.
Knowing what I know about the state of this movie and her likelihoods of survival moving forward, like that might have been the best thing that ever happened to her.
But they decide to let him stay. And so he does get through his training. He becomes a private. The thing with Johnny is throughout this whole movie, he just keeps failing upwards.
Well, this is the thing. They don't fire him. He goes through quote unquote administrative punishment.
Right.
10 lashes with a whip in front of everybody on the base.
And there again, as brutal as the death of Breckenridge is, this is brutal in such a different way because it's such a public flogging.
Yeah.
And, Zim gives him the piece to bite down on, like,
right.
hey,
bite
kid.
down on this. It helps. Trust me. And that's how you know that Zim has been through this himself.
Yeah. And that scene goes along. But what I liked was how the scene ended and we transferred to Carmen, but we're still hearing the sounds of his punishment.
Yeah. But that's the thing about Johnny is that he goes through this punishment, this very public flogging. And then he quits. He doesn't quit before this.
Was weird to me.
After this.
Yeah.
And to me, that is a sign, honestly, of this is how Johnny is accepting his own guilt for this situation.
Yeah.
In this moment, he realizes that one, he's not cut out. Well, he thinks he's not cut out for this. And two, he needs to pay a price for getting one of his friends killed.
Yeah. And
another one of his friends drummed out of their dream because of his actions. Right?
Yeah, that's true. That makes a lot more, because in the moment I'm like, why would he go through all this and then quit? But that's a good read on that like this is sort of him doing his penance and then saying, okay, now that I've taken my lumps, I'm done.
Somebody even I think it's Dizzy even calls him on it. It's like, you took your lashes, you're okay. Why are you leaving?
Yeah. But before he can quit is when the asteroid hits Buenos Aires, and
he's signed the papers. He's calling mom and dad to come home.
Oh man,
rain at this time of year.
Well, what is amazing about it is his parents, who were so dead set against him signing up, are just welcoming him back. They're not even giving him hassle about it. They're just like, no, come on home, honey. It's fine. Everything's great.
It's what a lot of parents would do in this situation.
But for as angry as his dad was when he left, to have no animosity whatsoever, no I told you so's nothing. At least
I think it's because he expected his son to come home not 100%, whether that's not 100% in limbs or not 100% of mind.
Yeah.
But now he's coming home. He's abandoning this silly dream. So of course we're going to bring him back in because he's our only son, because apparently it takes a license to be able to have a child in the first place.
Right. And then, it's getting dark and the transmission goes and he doesn't think anything of it. Johnny's just like, okay. And he's getting ready to leave before finding out that that's why, because Buenos Aires was wiped off the map. And that's where we get one of the most iconic moments, which is everybody running and the whole war, we're going to war. And now and this all has been under the framing device of 1 year earlier. That was my other nitpick, was this first hour of the movie is the year we opened up with them on Clendathu, and then we go 1 year earlier. And some of the passage of time, I felt like I didn't get the feeling of, months have probably gone by or weeks have gone by. It was just sort of like
it works like I clocked again. For some reason, I had not marked the 1 year earlier in previous watchings of this movie, or at least hasn't paid that close attention to it.
Okay.
I think it works for Johnny's story because we kind of read into a lot of what he may or may not be doing. Like, he's doing this training exercise. He's probably done that training exercise for 3 months.
Yeah.
They move on to this other training exercise and they do that for 3 months. I think it works a little bit against Carmen's favor, because Carmen, we come in with contact with her and like, she's about to fly the ship for the first time, and now she's just flying the ship.
Yeah, that's
and now, her whole story is just like, while Johnny is getting whipped in front of all of the people, Carmen is literally sitting on the bridge of the Roger Young, sipping coffee in her casual uniform,
right?
Not her
not her dress
not
whites,
her full Nazi uniform, but her and I say that because all of the costuming is Nazi inspired.
Oh yeah. And purposefully so. Especially Carl's stuff at the end, which is why Neil Patrick Harris apparently, according to trivia, so grain of salt, got the nickname Doogie Himmler during the production.
That's awful.
That is terrible. But when we finally do get catch up to present time, and we get to the invasion, right? So it's now we're going to war. Everybody's going. And now we kind of meet back up with our opening scene, but we see it from a different perspective. Because the opening scene was done through like a news camera.
A lot of other directors would just reuse that footage.
Mm-hmm. I liked showing it this way.
But Verhoeven just has a different perspective outside of the camera that we see in that opening scene, and it just works very well.
It does. And this scene also just shows us none of their training was really going to be useful, because they get.
Well, Travis, we talked about this prior. The guy even says, remember your training and you will come back alive. Well, they were trained to fight humans.
Yeah.
They were not trained to fight giant alien bugs at all.
Nope. And those bugs just eviscerate everyone. And it's brutal. Tearing people apart. And uncompromising is the best word I can use to describe the violence of these scenes. So
this is where, and I have to say, this was 1997.
Mm-hmm.
This movie got a lot of positive commentary on the bug effects themselves.
Yes, that's exactly where I was going.
So much of the bugs were done as CG animation.
Most of it.
Clearly there are some physical models of bugs, especially when you need something to pick a guy up and cut him in half, or you need a character to actually hop on top of a bug's carcass and jump over something else, etc. Mm-hmm. But it surprises me how much of this stuff from 1997 still holds up today.
Yeah. Well, so this was one thing I read, and I loved this. Most of the arachnids appearing in the movie are CGI. but there were some life-size robotic models built. But for battle scenes, a lot of the battle scenes, and if you pay attention to some of the shots, you'll kind of notice this. A lot of the battle scenes, they didn't have anything in place to go on. And so it would just be Paul Verhoeven jumping up and down, screaming at them, chasing people around with brooms. Clancy Brown, playing Sergeant Zim, affectionately described the director as, quote, a nutbag given to jumping up and down with a bullhorn going, I'm a big effing bug, I'll kill you. I loved him. He was so much fun. And I'm just trying to picture Paul Verhoeven like with a broom and a bullhorn chasing people around the set. And it's brilliant.
I should have looked up Starship Troopers behind the scenes. That is fantastic.
And there are a few shots where I'm like, yeah, there definitely is nothing there because a couple of the actors, their weapons are like pointed way too high for the bug they're supposed to be shooting. But that's fine. Like it didn't take me out of anything because
considering how bad these guys are at killing bugs, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, that's also very true. But man, the effects work in this is so good.
It's really, really incredible to think that it's been almost 30 years ago that this movie came out.
And they didn't have to fall into the trap of only having fight scenes at night so that they can hide stuff. They have battle scenes take place in bright sunlight on like a desert background, and the compositions all look great. There's only a couple times where I'm like, yeah, that's clearly a composited background. And that's just because of like 30 plus years of watching movies with a critical eye and paying attention to that. Just like at a glance, no, looks great. Like the iconic shot of Johnny Rico turn around when the big bug is behind him that just came out of the ground. Like so many of these shots are great. And they had very distinct looks to like the warrior bugs and the flying ones and then the big beetle bugs that shot stuff out their back end and had the plasma fire and all of it.
Well, that's two different bugs right
there. It is.
The flame bugs and the big shooty bugs.
Yeah, like there's like 4 distinct, and then the brain bugs and the little ones. So there's like 6 different distinct looking bugs, and they all just look so good, and you really get to feel that they're there. They did such a good job of not only creating them and animating them, but the sheer number of them in some shots is unreal. So
I mean, it really makes me wonder how much time rendering they had to do.
So there was one thing, I did read this. I thought this was really cool. They talked about how there were times where they were trying to render frames and it was taking like 32 hours to render one frame. And they devised an algorithm and a plan, and they used sprites of certain, like the out of focus background bugs, to be able to trim that down so that they could actually like render some of these shots. Because I can't imagine 32 hours to do one frame at 24 frames a second. You do the math. It's going to take months. So, it's just crazy that the level of effects they were able to do digitally in this with I think it was it Stan Winston? No, it's not Winston, but shoot, I had it down and I lost it. But like the creature effects, maybe it was, but the creature effects are just unreal how good they are. And it was up for an Oscar for best visual effects that year. It lost to Titanic. Which, you know, that's one of those where it's like, okay, I get it. Titanic was the better reviewed and better liked movie. And Cameron,
I feel like, oh no, a big boat coming out of the water. That's so difficult. I know it is, but
like what they did in Titanic is incredible. For sure.
I don't know.
It's
I've
worthy.
Never seen it.
But this movie definitely was worthy of an Oscar nomination for, by the way, you haven't seen it. It's actually a pretty good movie. You should watch it. I would have you on to do it on this show, but I've done it.
Which I am thankful. That's all the reason I said it out loud. I know I'm not going to be on the hook for it.
I will find who it was that did this because I had some notes about it. But I'm telling you, like, you can't tell. Half these shots just look between the meshing of practical effects and digital effects and everything that went on looks so good throughout the movie. And couple that with the costuming, because all the armor, which did get reused in Firefly.
Hang on. I got to talk about this. I was looking something up real fast because
go for it.
There was something I forgot to bring up a minute ago, but I was going to say, Travis, you may not have seen this movie before, but you've seen the armor from this movie in one of a potentially innumerable number of things.
Oh yeah.
Because as a result, because they had so many soldiers for this movie, they made upwards of 1,000 different individual costumes of this armor.
Crazy.
So, yes, you've already mentioned that it shows up in, which one did you say?
There was an episode of Firefly, The Train Job.
The Train Job in Firefly. In fact, a couple of other episodes of Firefly they show up with as well. 2 different Power Rangers series, both Power Rangers Lost Galaxy and Power Rangers Time Force feature it.
Okay.
It shows up in the Planet of the Apes remake, Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
Oh.
Although that might have just been the helmet that showed up there. There was the Mobile Suit Gundam anime franchise in the late 1990s did a Canadian straight-to-video live-action movie that features these costumes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're all over the place because they made so many of them, so they got used in a lot of stuff. Apparently they show up in Andromeda. They may have also, pieces of these costumes may have also shown up in Babylon 5's later seasons. One of the helmets appears in I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry.
Well, I mean, when you make that many of them, like, you got them to sell. By the way,
it's a lot of stuff.
I found it. It wasn't Stan Winston. I got my Stan Winston Phil Tippett meshed. It was Phil Tippett Studios that did a lot of the work on this. And they're, really well known for a lot of stuff they had worked on. Jurassic Park prior. That was a big thing that they worked on. So Phil Tippett and his studio did a lot of the bug work and a lot of the bug design. And it's just phenomenal. Like, so
great bug design.
Yeah.
I would not want to run into any one of these things.
No, not at all.
In real life.
So once they get to the planet and they have that whole scene, and then we get like the second wave of action sequences where now we meet up with Ratchet again and they get in the Roughnecks. This again is where, like, you could have trimmed some of the first hour of this movie down and given us more time in the Roughnecks.
I think that's true, but I feel like the big K battle is important for a number of things.
Oh, absolutely.
So there's a couple of things I wanted to look up. The thing I was looking up is I noticed in my notes there's a bar fight between Rico and Xander before night before the battle. For some reason, Fade Into You by Mazzy Star is playing in the middle of that bar fight.
I have no idea why.
It's so strange. I hadn't clocked it before this watching that I was like, wait a second, what? But the guy that's leading their assault force is the if you remember your training, you will come back alive. He's one of the first people to die in this battle, which is great. We already talked about it earlier, but I just wanted to have babies person. There's the crying baby there. The guy who got into Harvard is the guy who goes out and is like, come get some. Yeah, you want some of this? And then gets destroyed and ripped apart in a quite frankly hilariously brutal way. But yeah, but it's also when we do also see Carmen and Xander from the fleet perspective, and they're not dropping any bombs on this planet. They're just dropping ships.
Yeah.
And the second that the bug attack hits them, the captain's like, oh, according to military intelligence, it'll be random and light, which is just like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And then, somebody made a mistake. Yeah, somebody did make a mistake. You did by showing up in the first place. But we get the whole, like, then the second half is then with the Roughnecks. And once again, just brutal when they show up at that outpost. So first, we got to meet Raschek, and it's Raschek's Roughnecks, and they get involved in that, and they go through their first patrol, which is like, now we're carpet bombing the planet, and then the mobile infantry goes in to mop up.
Well, and they also have this reputation of, they killed more bugs on Big K than anybody else.
Yeah, yep. And we get the whole scene where the one sergeant gets taken by one of the flying bugs, and Raschek shoots him and then says, I would expect any one of you to do the same for me.
So this, to me, is one of the biggest weird pieces of this movie. Because throughout the entirety of this scene leading up, as they're walking through this canyon, they keep seeing stuff up on the ridge, and they keep seeing rocks falling
moving
down. And Radchek spots this. Rico spots this. But what does Radchek do? He sends his sergeant, one of his top people, and the guy that has his communications equipment.
Yes.
Knowing there's something up there, to get to a higher level to see if he can get something to happen.
Because he's not able to get anything on the radio.
Yeah, and that dude is immediately picked up. It's almost like Radchek sent that guy to his own death.
Kind of, yeah. But here again is Rico sort of failing upwards, because he's gone from cadet to private. He's become a corporal because of whatever happened in the first thing that they did.
The arm getting blown.
Melted off.
Arm getting burned off.
And him killing the one bug. And so Raschek, like, all right, you're a corporal. I got to play some of these audio clips as we go, because some of these are so good. Raschek saying this to him.
I need a corporal. You're it until you're dead, or till I find somebody better.
Like, that's just...
What a line.
Such a good line. You're it until you're dead, or I find somebody better. So now he's a corporal, and then the sergeant gets snatched, and Raschek has to shoot him, and he just turns around and is like, Rico, you're now acting sergeant. Like, dude just keeps getting promoted because he happens to be in the right place at the right time. It's pretty impressive.
It's kind of what that whole thing is all about, right?
I got a couple more Raschek lines that I want to play from sort of this area in the movie, which is, I just love the way he said,
really?
It's just, Michael Ironside, you're just so damn cool.
Michael Ironsides is so great. Have you ever seen Turbo Kid?
I have not.
Well, add that to the list.
I'll put it on the list.
When Miles is back in town, we'll Turbo Kid.
But I love him, because then when he like after their victory, their battle, right? They're all celebrating that night, and he comes in, and I love where he bangs on the thing. He's like, we work hard, we party hard, or whatever.
Here's the beer.
Here's the beer.
Have fun. That's an order.
Like,
here's the entertainment.
Yeah, which I love that the entertainment opens up, and there's a violin in there, that clear, or that like green acrylic violin, and Ace immediately grabs it and starts playing it.
Well, because he had been playing earlier in the movie as well. It is weird to me, the song that he's playing at the party.
Well, yes.
He is playing what sounds to me like Dixieland.
Kind of, yeah.
Which, kind of, whether that was intentional or not, it says a lot to me, having grown up in the South.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you have his, I only have, this is for all you new people. I only have one rule.
Okay. We touched on this, but by the end of the movie, Johnny Rico is basically just re-saying a lot of Raschek's lines. He's become him.
Yeah.
So Raschek says this.
I only have one rule. Everyone fights, no one quits. If you don't do your job, I'll shoot you.
All right. That's intimidating.
It also sounds like 2 rules to me, but I'm not going to say anything to him.
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to question it because I don't want to get shot. But it's very intimidating, right? It's just Michael Ironside's voice. And then when Rico says it later on to the new recruits, the new cadets that show up, who, by the way, all do look like teenagers.
Yeah.
And he says,
I only have one rule. Everyone fights. No one quits. If you don't do your job, I'll kill you myself.
Just doesn't have the same, it doesn't land.
Bless you, Casper Van Dien. You're doing your best, but it really does. And this is probably intentional, so he did it right. It really sounds like little brother trying to like cosplay as the roughneck.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have the gravel in his voice.
Yeah.
There's another situation of that, which is when they get to that base and they find everybody dead. And they get in there, and of course,
no, I'm so sorry. I don't remember if we talked about it before. Did we talk about make it 20 minutes?
Oh no, okay, you're right. So he tells, first of all, he tells.
I know we're running long with this one. But
No. He tells him because as everybody is partying, right, and they're celebrating their victory, and Dizzy comes over to Johnny, and she's like, "Hey, come out and dance with me." And he doesn't want to dance. And he does the whole, do I have to pull rank on you? And so she just grabs the other dude and goes dance with him. Like, good on you, Dizzy. But Razchek walks up to him and was like, you asked me for advice once.
Never pass up a good thing.
Never pass up a good thing. So then he gets called away, right? HQ's on the horn. Cut to, because Johnny is finally told by somebody he respects, i.e. Razchek, hey, Dizzy wants a little piece of Johnny Rico, go get some. So cut to them in their tent going at it, and then Razchek shows up and tells them, like, we got a call, we're leaving, get your gear, we're out in 10 minutes. Wait, who's that with you? And I just love it because then she pulls the thing down and it's Dizzy, and then you just get
make it 20 minutes.
What an iconic line. Like, it's so good.
Line.
It's so good.
Paul Verhoeven movies have a lot of iconic lines.
They
and that
really
one does not get nearly as much play as some of the others. But
it doesn't, but it really should because, oh God, it's so good. I did mention this is probably one of the most famous lines from the movie.
War! We're going to war!
As they're all running. That's earlier when the asteroid is hit.
Base.
But that's a really, really good one. But yeah, so they find that base. He's like, hey, police these bodies. Let's clean this up and all of this. And they're figuring everything out. And then when the bugs are attacking, because this is another one of those Rico kind of cosplaying as Razchek is.
Well, I got to say before the bugs actually attack, this is our first real look at a new kind of bug that no one's ever seen. They scooped his brains out.
Oof, which
they
brutal.
Sucked his brains out.
It's a brutal moment. And then the bugs attack, and you get this from Razchek.
Come on, you apes! You want to live forever?
Come on, you apes! You want to live forever. Number one, having General Katana saying that in my film just tickled me because he was in a Highlander movie. But also, the last thing we get from Johnny Rico in the movie is,
come on, you apes! You want to live forever!
Just keeps parroting the same lines. He can't even come up with his own material at this point. But still doesn't quite have the gravitas.
So there was a CG animated film based off of kind of half based off of this movie or TV series, excuse me, half based off this movie and half based off the original books.
Okay.
And the one thing I remember about this, because again, it's been 20 something years since I've watched a single second of this, is that the Razchek in that series, his tagline before they would drop down into whatever they were doing was "Live forever, apes," and they drop everybody.
Oh wow!
Doesn't really land the same way that Michael Ironside's doing it here.
Not really, no.
Does, but you know.
I have so many clips from the propaganda movies that I have to play a couple of these because they were so good. The voiceover for them is things like,
They're doing their part. Are you?
I'm doing my part.
Was really, really good. Or I love this guy, which I think is one of the producers in the role. And this is in the aftermath of the Buenos Aires devastation.
The only good bug is a dead bug.
The only good bug is a dead bug.
I mouthed it as before you played it. I knew which one it was going to be. But that's another thing about that one in particular is they're literally showing the cleanup of Buenos Aires, and I was honestly hoping. I know they weren't going to do it, but like as they pulled some rubble off some people, I was expecting to see maybe one or two people that we had seen earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
Didn't really happen, or if it did, I didn't clock it. Something that I think would definitely happen if they remade this movie today.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also just the idea that they're cleaning up this rubble of this massive, like millions of people dead situation to film the only good bug is a dead bug.
Yeah.
It's just... really, really fascinating.
I also liked how so many of the little clips would end with,
Would you like to know more?
Would you like to know more? You had this reminded me, because I listened to a lot of George Carlin when this scene happened. It's both dystopic, but also it had been a bit I had heard.
Execution tonight at 6. All net, all channels. Would you like to know more?
The execution. The live execution.
All net, all channels.
And the fact that he was arrested, tried, convicted, and will be executed all in one day. It's very Judge Dredd going on. We did talk about it, but there was the debate thing.
300 generations or something. It gets smarter.
Insects with intelligence? Have you ever met one?
Have you ever met one?
I find the very concept offensive.
Oh, you mean...
Frankly, man. I find the idea of a bug that thinks offensive.
I just like offensive.
It's just one of those things where it's just like the stuff hasn't changed very much.
No, it has not.
Service guarantees citizenship.
Boy, that's service guarantees citizenship.
And that they were still, putting that line after watching all of these people.
Yeah.
Brutally die.
I am one that likes to get laughs. I think we have talked about that before. I like to capture laughs in movies because they always tickle me. And this one in particular was one of the propaganda videos that is the kid stomping on the bugs and then the woman in the background. That's a real good one.
She's so crazy.
There was one other though that actually I think was better. And that was Jake Busey. I love that laugh. That one is just awesome. So there is that. And then this was another one. The Sky Marshal said this at one point in one of the propaganda videos.
To ensure that human civilization, not insect, dominates this galaxy now and always.
Dominates this galaxy. It's very, very particular wording used there.
Naked force has solved more problems in this something than the blah, blah, blah for Radcheck from the very beginning. It's all that stuff that is like, it's at the same time so subtle, but also beats you over the head with the very concept that how could you possibly think anything different?
Yeah. I mean, it is both sides of that, right? It is, which is why I can understand how some people misinterpreted it. It's just like I could understand how people misinterpreted Fight Club, and there's been a lot of movies that have done this over the years. But if you look at it with any amount of a critical eye, you can see what Verhoeven is doing, which that was one of the things is early reviews. And part of the reason why this movie didn't do great in the And it's the only Starship Troopers movie theatrically released, right? Everything after it was straight to video. It made enough for that. But
at best.
the critical reaction was bad. And I remember reading some of these, and it's part of what made me not go see it. Like the LA Times called it cheerfully lobotomized. And there were things tossed out there like one-dimensional or totalitarian. They criticized things like just the look of stuff and sort of, you mentioned the very Nazi-looking costuming, which was by design. But
it's
by
almost
design,
like all of this is intentional.
by design to be looked at as, no, this isn't good, and it shouldn't be thought of as good, but we're going to package it in a way that the characters think it is. The characters within the movie, because it's all that they know, think that it's a good thing, right? Razchek, he truly believes that. And that's his thing with Rico early on, is he asks him something in the classroom and he gives him an answer and goes, it's exactly the words in the text, but do you believe it?
Yeah.
And by the end of the movie, he does believe it. But that's probably not the arc that he needed to take as a human being.
Well, and unfortunately, it's one of those things where it's like, I listened to Michael Ironside's performance in that scene in particular, and he's so good. And
oh yeah,
he's so good in that role that you kind of catch yourself, not really, but almost thinking like, well, he makes kind of a point here. Obviously, I don't agree with that whole idea, but you can see how, at least to somebody that is young or not looking at this critically or not thinking about that, could really be drawn in by this very confident, charismatic person saying this with a cool voice.
Yeah. Well, because he says this at one point.
Figuring things out for yourself is the only freedom anyone really has. Use that freedom.
That's good advice. Figuring things out for yourself is one of the few freedoms we truly have. That is very good advice. And
it's also nice to know that in the far future of whenever this movie takes place, Canada still exists.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But the flip side of it is then Razchek also will say something like,
something given has no value.
Which isn't necessarily true. Like, I understand his point of view, but I don't know that I necessarily agree with it has no value. Or
the contrary opinion, that violence never solves anything, is wishful thinking at its worst. People who forget that always pay.
I mean, only when you're faced with a military and everybody thinking the same way he does, which is force is the only way to get anything done.
Yeah.
So it's that dichotomy, which is what makes the movie work, and why I think it has had the cult following and sort of the long tail that it has in terms of being looked at much more favorably over the years from when it came out. RoboCop kind of had a similar thing. RoboCop was a little more popular in its day, but people didn't really grasp what was going on with that movie until later on.
And I think that's kind of Paul Verhoeven's whole thing. Like, he was born in the 1930s. He was a very young kid in Nazi occupied, wherever he was from, the Netherlands.
Yep.
And, so you have a very young person probably hearing the occupiers saying things very much like what we're hearing in this movie. But the Nazis lost the war. And so when you have a group of people coming out and saying stuff like this in 1997, when we are, largely separated from the idea of war, at least of that scale, pretty far out, it sounds either completely foolish, and then no one would say this, or, we hadn't really thought about it in that context of what that means. And I think that's kind of where, unfortunately, this movie has kind of become more impactful today because we have more and more people saying things like that.
Yeah. Yep, there was a little bit of like a cautionary tale going on here that sadly got missed by a few people. But the movie itself was, I'm not going to call it a good film, right, in the quote unquote good aspect of things, but it's really good and I really enjoyed it. And I can understand why a lot of people do enjoy it because I do think it knows what it wants to be. Verhoeven is making, and I think he's gone on record saying this was his favorite film that he's made. At least at one point it was.
Well, he got to be in a room full of naked people, so why wouldn't it be?
True. That's a fair point. But I can understand how critics didn't get it at the time, but how it's grown to be appreciated over time. And I do think that it is really well crafted. And on top of that, just the way it visually has held up for almost 30 years is impressive because I was expecting it to look like a movie from 1997, and it does, but it also looks so much better than I thought it would. This is a lot closer to a Jurassic Park level of special and visual effects than it is to some of the schlock that was coming out around it at that time. That's very impressive to me. And that's a hat tip to Tippett Studios and Paul Verhoeven and everybody involved in really making sure that they got a good design and they put in the time to make it look good. So, for all its faults in terms of like, yeah, some of the performances are a little wooden. Okay, that's fine. They're younger actors, but there's not a whole lot on the page for them to do.
I love that you're calling out what's her name? Not Carmen Electra. What is her name? Denise Richards. Sorry. I completely flaked on that. In the scenes that Denise Richards in that are that she is good, it's fine. But there are some very, very wooden.
I will say, while there are some very wooden performances from her, Denise Richards is one who her acting has improved so much throughout her career. And I think she is a lot better now. And she grew into having a very solid acting career. But early on, some of her stuff was a little bit wooden. But for all of that, I will say there is one moment in this that I 100% bought. And that is when her and Johnny are splitting before leaving for their respective academy/boot camp. And he tells her, "I love you." And she hesitates. The hesitation, I really bought that. And then when he says, "Try it, say it once, just try it on for size." And her delivery of,
"I love you,"
is spot on where that character should be because there is zero sincerity in that.
Yes,
zero.
100%. And it's interesting that plays out later with Johnny and Dizzy.
It does, yes. Yeah. The interesting thing was he hesitates, but his hesitation to me felt less like I don't love you and more like finally realizing that. But he still can't say it.
Yeah. It's tough to say with that. And obviously, of course, then what happens as it does. And
that is the final thing that completes his transformation into soldier Johnny Rico, because the whole scene with her funeral is him spouting all of the rhetoric. And
well, it's not just him losing Dizzy in that moment. It's also him losing Radchek in that moment.
Yeah. He lost like everyone at that same moment, and it's the completion of his arc. So it is a good movie. It's streaming on Netflix right now in the U.S. So I don't know outside of the U.S. where it might be. You can check listings, but like if you haven't watched this movie in a while, it's worth a rewatch. And there's a lot of it that
hits different in 2025, gang.
There is a lot of it that hits I can understand how different this would be hitting for people that had seen it before. And if you haven't seen it yet, first of all, you should have watched it before listening to us yammer on for 2 hours about it. But go check it out because it's worth it. It's really, really good. It is brutal, though. It is bloody. I will mention the most brutal kill in this is Xander, who gets his brains sucked out of his head by the brain bug. Because that was they held on that for a while, and they really wanted to show you that whole sequence.
And the brains sucking through the tube.
Yep. Ugh.
You know, I got to hand it to Xander. I hated him for most of the movie, as you are supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
But he went out looking that brain bug in the face and saying, one day someone that looks like me is gonna kill you.
Yep.
And
it was a way to go out, and like I knew what was coming, and it still was rough. So it's definitely a movie not for the faint of heart in terms of gore, but the gore in it is also, like RoboCop, so ridiculously over the top to the point of almost cartoonish, but still gruesome. So bear that in mind if you haven't seen it or haven't seen it in a while. Man, is it good.
It's not like I look at a movie like Kill Bill, which goes by like the sort of Asian cinema style of things, where when somebody gets their throat cut open, the blood gushes out like a big spurt.
Hose. Yeah.
This is not like that. This feels way more realistic and just like somebody gets hit with something and you don't see them anymore. You just see a blood splatter where they were. You see a lot of...
It is like, and it would have been a year or two before, but the Normandy invasion in the beginning of Saving Private Ryan is a very similar thing to this, which is it's uncompromising.
Why I've never watched that movie a second time. I saw that movie in the theater. I never need to see it again.
Yeah, because it just doesn't hold anything back. And this movie doesn't hold anything back. But then it'll balance it out with a co-ed shower. So, you got both sides of it. There you go. Yeah. But
that wasn't in Saving Private Ryan.
No, it wasn't.
What about that, Spielberg?
No, instead we got to have what's his name's terrible, terrible death with the slow knife. That's the other thing that in that movie that's rough.
I don't know. It's been, again, I watched that movie one time in the 90s or whenever it came out, and I haven't seen it since.
Fair. No, this was a great choice, Drew, and it was great to have you back. It's been too long. It's always a pleasure having you here.
Happy to be here.
It was awesome to get to see you and hang out at Dragon Con a few weeks ago. And let people know about your show if they forgot what it was, because it's definitely a show people should be listening to.
Yeah, so you can find me and my co-host Miles, who has also been on this show a few times over the years. We do a show called The More You Nerd, where we basically kind of look at different facets and pockets of the nerd universe to kind of experience things, sometimes for the first time and sometimes, for the 100th time. And we'd like to try to do a bunch of stuff we've kind of, I don't know, that just seems fun and interesting, fun themes. And I'm also on a show called Cosmic Crit. We are on a little bit of a hiatus right now as we have ended our run with Starfinder First Edition.
Okay.
And we are about to kick off on Starfinder Second Edition. Ooh. But in the meantime, we might be covering a little bit of an RPG that is based on, how do I say this? There's some xenomorphic tendencies to it.
Really?
So you might see some of that as we get into the October month this year.
Very cool. Fun. Cosmic Crit. That's cosmiccrit.com.
Yes.
And The More You Nerd, which I love listening to The More You Nerd. What I like about The More You Nerd is you guys jump around. You don't just do movies or just TV. You'll do the comics run you've been doing with all the absolute DC stuff has been a lot of fun to listen to, because as somebody who doesn't have a ton of time to read comics, it is really cool to get your perspectives on it, because I can tell that you have read stuff, that you've read a lot of comics, but I also like how you'll be like, yeah, I didn't read a lot of Green Lantern, or I didn't read a lot of Flash, but I know enough about it to have an idea of where they're going. And it's really a lot of fun. It has me wanting to read some of those comics too.
Based on some of our reactions on our Discord, if you're looking for physical books, apparently Absolute Batman is impossible to find right now.
Oh boy.
But it is all available on DC's various apps and
good.
Comixology, Amazon, etc.
Excellent. But definitely check out The More You Nerd. Check out Cosmic Crits. A lot of fun. And you guys are great. And it's always a pleasure having you here. If you like,
so much.
If you're listening to this and you like this, you can come hang out and be like Phelan or a Stigma in the chat. And hang out Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time at twitch.tv/TV's Travis for the live stream. Show comes out every Wednesday, anywhere you get your podcasts, including a video version on YouTube. You can just search for Wait You Haven't Seen. Search on YouTube for TV's Travis. It's youtube.com/@TV's Travis to find this show, any other things that I'm doing there, or go to tvstravis.com. That has all the podcasts I'm a part of. It has links to my merchandise, and it also has the link to the Patreon for this show, which lets me do things like going to Dragon Con every year and the upcoming Nerdtacular 2026. So patreon.com/WYHS. That helps the show keep going. It also, you get my first watch diaries. I am in the midst of Wednesday season 1, and I've been enjoying that so far. That's been a lot of fun. Those are patrons only. They're just short, 10, 15 minutes long of my thoughts on each episode of a series. Right now it's Wednesday. You can also help me decide.
It's Sunday.
Yes. But this show does come out on Wednesdays on the calendar week. Anywhere you get your shows, definitely check that out. Drew, thank you so much for being here. Always a pleasure. We must do it again sometime and not take so long between episodes. We keep doing that. I keep saying it, and then I forget. So we're busy people. What can I say?
It happens.
Now, next week, I teased this last week, and then I had my weeks all messed up. But next week, I have a guest coming on, Jared Concessions. We're going to talk about a little movie from starring Jean-Claude Van Damme called Sudden Death. I've never seen it before. All I know about it is it's Die Hard in a hockey arena. So I teased it last week, but this week, that is actually what's happening. Sudden Death. That's going to be the next episode, right before we roll into the Gore podcast crossovers for the month of October. And we got some fun ones for that. So I cannot wait. That's what's coming up. But yeah, check it out. Enjoy the shows. Remember, everybody, to enjoy your movies. Drew, I'm going to say this like I say every time, but let's be excellent to each other, right? This has been Wait You Haven't Seen.
Everyone's doing their part. Are you?
Are you?
I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part.
The kid. I'm doing my part too.